That was my biggest worry of like, it's been so long since, JJ hadn't hit a drum in a decade sort of thing. I felt like I still play guitar regularly enough to keep the chops up, but you need that in the room vibe with everybody to know if it's going to gel. And honestly, first jam all together, which was last week, I think. Maybe we're approaching 2 weeks now, but there was just something I was like, this could be 2003.
Hey, how you going? My name is Lachlan Watt and music is my life. I've been over in the UK for the last week for Damnation Festival in Manchester that just took place over the weekend. On my final day, and this part of the podcast is coming to you from a tiny little hotel room in London. Just seeing if I can get away with doing it straight into the laptop webcam, just to save myself setting up the production inside this little tiny room, and I guess I'm going to feel pretty silly if it ends up looking and sounding okay. That's kind of been a running theme of this podcast, just figuring out the whole video production thing, the whole portable studio thing as I go, making mistakes along the way, figuring it out and just making the most of it. And I think that's really apparent in the conversation you're about to hear for this week's episode with Kevin Cameron of I Killed the Prom Queen. The chat took place at the Tivoli in Brisbane before the second of the two shows that they had there, and I just incorrectly assumed that because it was the second show that there wouldn't really be a whole great deal of sound checking going on. I would have loved to have had a bit more of an in-depth chat with Kev, especially considering that it was his first time doing a podcast. But I think we got the bulk of the main story out of the way. We made the most of the limited time that we did have, talking about the band's long journey to this 25-year anniversary tour. We also talk a bit about him joining Day of Contempt and his other project, Entrenches. But thankfully, I was much more thoughtful in scheduling out my recordings at Damnation Festival over the weekend. And once this Prom Queen arc of the podcast is done, I've got heaps of sick shit up my sleeves for you. And conversations with Deaf Heaven, Garia, Portrayal of Guilt, Conjurer, Author and Punisher, Core Guns, and Pupil Slicer will be coming your way after we get through the Prom Queen arc of the podcast, which still to come has conversations with Dane from To The Grave, who are supporting, and other Prom Queen members, JJ and Jonah. Also squeezed in a little chat with We Lost the Sea before I came over here. So there is quite a bit to look forward to, and if any of it sounds appealing to you, please consider liking, subscribing, following, whatever it is you need to do to stay up to date with this podcast on your platform of choice. My name is Lachlan Watt. Music is my life. Thanks for listening. Now I give you my conversation with Kevin Cameron. Cheers. It's been an insane ride, obviously, from this tour being an idea to a reality. Tell us about your experience of that and the anxiety of it all to where you are now, first couple shows down, everyone is feeling good.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, in my head when the talk of it happened, kind of post Crafted doing the guest spot with Parkway and all that, I was kind of like middle of the road with a lot of it. I was like, maybe it'll be a show at the corner, a show in Adelaide, like do a Fowlers, do a corner. And I guess because I've never had the outside scope of this group, I don't know what the other side sees or how big or small it is or any of that. But initially, I guess, when it all got floated, I was kind of like, I can't see it pulling together. To be honest, there was a lot of chatter, but it wasn't really moving too forward. And then as time got on, I was kind of, I think I was the last person to really agree to it. Not for any hostility with everyone or anything. It was just really felt like I'd closed this chapter for myself. the last few years definitely got a bit more away from everything, a bit more reclusive. I was said to the dudes, like, happy for someone else to play in my spot. I'm never seen myself as much of a identity of this group. Even if like I come up with a bunch of the music and all that, I was absolutely fine for them to go ahead without me, and then took a bit of convincing, and they were kind of like, if you're not there, we're not doing it. So I was like, fine, strap on the guitar again, and here we are. We are at the beautiful Tivoli.
Yeah, I think the reception to it took everyone involved by surprise.
Yeah.
And I think Prom Queen was always, at least for me when I was a kid, like, you were definitely an integral part of it. Like, everyone had their personality, and you were like the metal guy in the band, and I gravitated towards that and thought, that guy's fucking cool. So I think there's plenty of people out there like me who would feel like it wasn't Prom Queen if you weren't on stage with them.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like one of those weird things of like, starting listening to the old songs again and getting ready to jam, and just, it was so long ago, like musically, even some of the lyrics I provided at the time, because I was 16 to 19 in a lot of that period. So it's just a strange headspace to go, I'm approaching 40.
Yeah.
Here's what I did as a little teenager, and it still holds up in some people's opinion. So
what songs did you contribute lyrics to?
It was a fair bit of the music for record. I didn't necessarily place them, but it was like, we had a short amount of time to redo the vocals after the drama at that time, so I just was like, here's a stack of stuff. I'd already done the lyrics for 666, and I can't remember what it's called, the last one.
There'll be no caskets when you die or something?
The one before that, in the studio in Sweden. So I still had leftover lyrics as like a safety net, and like 95% of Say Goodbye, apart from the chorus, because that was already there. I think I thought that would work for Necktie, and then when the new vocalist chucked through all his stuff, I was like, I would not have pictured it there. You've done a much better job. So full credit to him for where he placed my 40-50% of input. But yeah, it was just kind of like, here's a stack of stuff, do what you can with it. Yeah.
And now we're back to Crafter singing those lyrics.
Absolutely.
What was your
man, the myth,
biggest concern, I suppose, with coming back, and your biggest worry about what might potentially not go right?
I think I overthought everything, and I had a few people around me just being like, nothing really can go wrong. I think I was just too internal with a lot of it, in terms of like being a different person. Obviously, the early years of this band, when we were a bit more intense as a live unit, it was like, I'm not that same angry person that's splitting his head open and
you're not
bouncing off of things and all of that, because it was coming from a genuine place, I think, and that people made more of a focus on that made me go, I'm going to chill out on that sort of stuff. And now, as an adult, not coming at things, I know I play a lot better now, but all things like that, of just getting back into the headspace of a sprightlier dude. I think that was one of the main things of just like, I don't know, I think, as I said before, I like kind of closed off my connection and all that to the journey of this roller coaster of a band.
I think Crafter and I were having a little laugh before about how it's the first time that both he and JJ have ever actually practiced leading into a tour.
Absolutely.
And all the reports seem to be that the band is sounding better than ever. So that's taken you a bit by surprise?
Yeah, like back to you asking like my hesitations. Everyone lives in a different spot of the globe essentially now. So we got it all together on pretty short notice. And that was my biggest worry of like, it's been so long since, JJ hadn't hit a drum in a decade sort of thing. I felt like I still play guitar regularly enough to keep the chops up, but you need that in the room vibe with everybody to know if it's going to gel. And honestly, first jam all together, which was last week, I think. Maybe we're approaching 2 weeks now, but there was just something I was like, this could be 2003, like still anticipating who's gonna stumble into a part of a song or whatever, like it was yesterday a bit, which is really strange. Like I've done a lot of shows and a lot of bands and things like that since, and still having that connection with everyone unspoken was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think you mentioned at dinner last night something about just kind of being able to, you and having that connection with JJ, knowing like when the next part's coming and just having feeling it without having to actually look at him to get the transition or whatever.
That was a really, like, I think all my worry from the week before, where I was everything was a catastrophe sort of thing, that the first 2 days of jamming, I was like, I don't know what I was worried about. This is going to be fine. And it's only escalated from there into the first couple of shows. I was like, this is all the worries kind of gone in that aspect. I
got to admit, as a promoter, I was a little bit worried, just knowing that, even like a week before the shows, you guys still hadn't really figured out if you were going to be using like a click track or not, and like adding like extra crew like 2 weeks out and stuff.
Yeah.
It was just like,
I think
definitely a bit like, but it's all come together.
All came together. Like it was a bit of a lesson of like, oh, we're a bit, we've all been out of the loop for a lot of the things along the way. Like the standard of this type of music in this country is just 10 times more than when we were active. And not so much an expectation, but how you pull off a show these days is like, metalcore bands are playing mini stadiums now, which is insane and like great. They're like making sure we're at least in the ballpark of that on short notice. Is pretty nerve wracking, but as you said, like we're running it like we would have way back when. Still not. There's no backing tracks. There's no clicks and stuff like that. Just 5 dudes jamming out and
just natural feel.
Oddly locking in really well.
Yeah, it's just crazy thinking about like playing this venue. I think the farewell tour. With the last time you played with Crafter, that was like maybe a 300, 400 cap room or something.
Yeah, was that 299?
299?
Yeah, we did the 4 shows back to back there, which that was still insane. But it's like doing 2 nights at a 1500 cap is, like I said before, I was like, I saw this being a couple of casual 600 person shows in 2 cities, and it's great.
Do you ever sit back much and kind of just reflect on how much Prom Queen is responsible for opening up the gates to everything that's happening or has happened in heavy music in Australia for the last 20 years or so? I guess you're not the type to really sniff your farts too much, but
it's that conversation's come up a little bit the last fortnight, and I guess part of me has gone, I guess so. Like, definitely, we weren't the first metalcore band. We had the late 90s stuff in Australia that we all looked up to. A lot of Sydney bands, a lot of Melbourne bands. They have Contempt, Embodiment from Adelaide, stuff like that. But in terms of the European influence, that at the time was kind of like a Killswitch Has LA Dying first couple of records, but we didn't draw from that because we were more the In Flames Soilwork kind of vibe on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, which is, I guess, where all those bands are drawing it from too.
Yeah, so we just always came from a different perspective, but then would kind of get lumped with the Americanized metalcore after the fact.
Yep.
So I guess we were, at least for a percentage of people in this country, a bit of a gateway to that kind of thing. And retrospectively now, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think it was my first real, like, decent local show. I'd been to a couple of random things, but like I killed the Prom Queen at Princess Theatre.
I was just going to say, was it Lions Den or something? But yeah,
no, it's Princess Theatre with In the Grey and Gyroscope, I think. Or was it? No, it was Anti-Skeptic.
Might have been both. Might have been Anti-Skeptic.
Maybe
Gyroscope
it was both,
after the fall. Like,
I think Morning Tide opened.
Yep.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been their area that we were kind of like, all right, we've thrashed out doing the hardcore shows. That's kind of do a crossover thing. It's got a bit of a weird backlash at the time where, the sellout words getting thrown around, and you're like, you guys saw us 2 months ago playing the same set of songs. Nothing's changed sonically. It's just trying to open up to a bit of a newer audience.
Yeah, you guys really did open that up, and I've heard many people say over the years that like girls didn't come to shows until Prom Queen started playing, and it just opened up like a whole new sort of door for everyone to come into this style of music.
Yep, crazy.
So what were those early days like? How did you become involved in I Killed the Prom Queen? Was it your first band?
No, I'd had like local bands before it. I was playing in the same kind of scene in a group 2002-ish, I guess. I think I started playing around 2001. Prom late 2001 had put out a demo and for the next year. And then obviously running in the same circles. I didn't go to the school together as three of them did. But when it came up, they needed a new guitarist. I knew Kraft a bit. He was like, come down and try out. And I kind of felt like I winged it pretty quick in the first couple of jams and went interstate quite quick when I should have been doing year 12. I might have still been in year 11 at that point, actually, like 15, 16. It was a bit wild looking back now. Just went from there.
So your parents didn't care that you were skipping school to go on tour?
No, it kind of, I think because my parents are like very pro music, they didn't play themselves, but all my early influences came from their record collections and stuff like that. And it was always, rages on 24/7 at mum and dad's house and some sort of Sabbath or Zeppelin or something like that, or Uriah Heep or something. So I think they were just stoked, like, oh, he's doing that.
He's doing the rock and roll
that we love and we go and watch. So real grateful for their support through all that time when a lot of people would have been like, this isn't going anywhere. You know, everyone knows there's not a lot of cash floating around, particularly in the low levels of music. They just kind of like, if you think you got this, then go for it. The backup plan never really came up till later in life.
You're getting forced to have
regular jobs and things like that. But yeah. But no, they were super supportive all the way along, and still to this day, like they'll be at the gigs.
Nice. And obviously, you don't have to really commit to anything here if you don't want to. But what's your kind of hope for what might happen with the band from here?
We've got like stuff penciled. I say penciled loosely next year. All kind of like falling on how well this run goes. I think a few days in, as well as it's going now, it's kind of squashed those hesitations of do we want to try and do something else? Another Australia run, international runs again, because there is a renewed want, it seems.
It seems there's more demand for the band than there ever was, which is insane.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the whole new wave of like the Y2K metal type of thing that young kids are getting into, and maybe we're one of those bands that are like, I don't know, maybe it's a mini equivalent of like when I was a teenager and everyone being like the 80s thrash bands and stuff, with a real cool thing that you weren't around for. We're having that with the metalcore world or the hardcore world.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the 90s bands and throwback bands, early 2000s sort of stuff are having like their third rotation through and then like reforming in America and doing really well. So
for guys like us who are like late 30s, early 40s, it's getting to kind of relive the glory years a little bit, the nostalgia.
It's funny seeing like the things happen again. I was there for the first time, or like there when new metal died out the first time, and I was happy for it to stay died out myself. But
I remember when I first started going to shows and I'd just get bullied for wearing new metal shirts.
Right.
To the point where I just stopped wearing my new metal shirts because I was ashamed.
It's back though.
Yeah, and then like a few years later, it was like all the metalcore bands were being like, Korn is our biggest influence, and I'm like, fuck, I wish I'd never thrown that shirt out.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Like you don't expect or foresee what's going to be the guiding light for a lot of people. But the older I get, the less. I guess I was never really a gatekeeper to metal at all, but I'm way more like enthusiastic and do whatever you're gonna do. Like it's like if you can stay on the road and that's your job or that's your super passion, no matter what it sounds like go for it.
Yeah, all the more power to you.
Absolutely.
So you've also recently joined Day of Contempt. You weren't like content or happy with just having one legendary Adelaide metalcore band. You had to join another.
Apparently not. No, that's pretty cool. I think that reinvigorated my like whole outlook on gigging again.
How many shows you done with them so far?
None yet. We've just
yet?
been.
Oh.
We got a 5 coming up after this tour, which is pretty cool. Sort of like earlier in the year when they were talking about doing more than just a reunion every few years, they were going to have a bit of a lineup shift from some of the members from the 90s that wanted to dip out. I'd done a band with Ben, the singer. It's kind of like a hiatus other band since 2008-ish, so we're like great mates anyway, and he was kind of like, this might be a thing, do you want to jump in? I'm like, that's music I've listened to since 99 sort of thing.
Yep.
Like my big change from to local sort of hardcore was that group. So
how did you discover Day of Contempt?
Actually, it was a dude that worked with my dad that I ended up being in a band with, my first hardcore band. He made me a mixtape of like Day of Contempt, Embodiment. What else do we have there? I'm blanking on the rest of it.
So if those local bands weren't your gateway into hardcore, like what came before that for you to get you into that first band?
I was like very big on Meshuggah and Fear Factory, late 90s. Post being into like Silverchair and Tool and stuff like that. I think for some reason, something about the extremes of like both those bands. When Chaos Fear came out as a new album, and I was just like, there's no link to it to the Prom Queen music, obviously, but
there's a little bit in the breakdowns sometimes.
A little bit, but like very, very I think I respect them too much to ever tread in that territory. And it's like, it's cool, but I think that's probably the only band that I'm a little bit protective of. Like, I can't believe that everyone knows it now. A long time ago, having VHSs of them and stuff, I was just like obsessed.
Yeah, it's insane. All like these poppy kind of more accessible metalcore bands now, and you hear the riffs, and you're like
that
on the radio, and you're like, "Fuck, that is a Meshuggah riff."
It's pretty crazy. So I was like a lot of early death metal, a lot of that kind of extreme side, and then crossing over with the Adelaide hardcore sort of stuff. Finding that middle ground was pretty cool, and it was a bit easier to play as well compared to a lot of like listening to Morbid Angel or something like that, or Napalm Death or something like that.
So you'll have a few days off at the end of this tour, and you'll be going straight into the Ghost Inside tour with Day of Contempt.
Yeah, we've probably got like 10 days in between, and we got 3 of the Ghost Inside tour shows and 2 headliners. And it should be pretty sweet. And got a few new songs in the works as well.
Back to gig life.
It's crazy. That's such an escalation because I never really stopped entirely apart from like the lockdown era.
Yeah.
But definitely the last year I kind of said to a few mates, I reckon I'm selling all my gear. I think it's out of my system. And then a mixture of this opportunity and the DOC thing coming up, and I was like, I think this is what I know how to do.
So civilian life wasn't really working out for you? You just weren't feeling it?
No. Like, I know it's important to do, and it's not like I'm going to be full-time road dog again at this point, unless next year gets a bit crazy. But or at least be a bit more of a balance of 0 or 100 sort of thing.
I think it's can be easy to just kind of get over doing music full-time, especially when it's like not going super great, and you do need to every now and then dip your toes back into like doing a regular job or not touring to kind of go, actually, even when it's not the best, I fucking really love doing that and I miss it. Yeah. Kind of reminds you, huh?
Even just the common interest stuff that I didn't realize I was missing. Everyone says I'm on a constant tone hunt, so just hanging out and checking out guitar tones and guitar gear and chatting to people about all that stuff is a passion that's never going to go.
Well, this is unfortunate timing with the
sound check
drum
started.
sound check. I thought that we wouldn't need to check tones again, but JJ's kicking pretty hard, so maybe I don't know, let's just see how long he kicks for. Do we have to wrap it up? Let's just, I don't know, let's chill for a
The
moment.
time we got at the moment.
Where were we? How was sound check?
Soundcheck was great. I think that was the best run through we've had. Like a couple of monitor issues the last couple of shows. Nothing too drastic, but like felt pretty dialed today.
Sweet.
Everyone's had a good night's rest. Decent.
So I think, I was asking you about, or trying to ask you about Entrenches. Is that band done or just kind of indefinitely off?
It's just one of the, I think me and band's outlook for it was always like a hobby band. It's just that we toured straight away when we started the band, and that set like a strange dynamic for like when we disappear for a bit, people think something's gone wrong or whatever, but it was always meant to be like a, chuck out some songs, hopefully play some intense shows, and then disappear for a bit. I don't really have an answer for it though. Like, there's probably 6 new songs bouncing about in various degrees of finality. I think we were gigging like 3 or 4 of them the last few times we played, but yeah, I'd like to, if it needs to wrap up, at least release its final form or whatever, where I always thought it would get to. Yeah.
Yeah, and what did that look and sound like, its final form?
I think like I always wanted it to be a kind of like a early Cold of Luna mixed with Turmoil, leaning more into the doom side. That's sort of what I gravitate towards more sort of intense stuff, a bit more post metal. It's just the first release was like, it's not metalcore, but still like a bit more followable, despite it being pretty crazy. And we just got slower and slower over time. And I was like, this is kind of what I always wanted it to be, but it was a bit of a rush to get out the first release.
Yeah, it was like pretty misery signals, the first EP especially, or the first album. It was an album and then an EP, right?
Yeah. Definitely Mizig and Seven Angels were, for both bands actually, like important bands for me. I was saying to you before when we had food, I think me and Crafter were the first people in Australia to get the Misery Signals EP, and then like a few years later brought them out to tour with and stuff. So sad to see them go.
Was that a Boys of Summer tour, that first one?
Yep. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm not sure. It could have been. Yeah. I think about 2006. Just when like Carl was on the first record with him. But great band.
Yeah, I'm very sad that they're not around anymore.
It seemed to like wrap it pretty strong though overseas, like doing the dual vocalist thing, and
yeah, it's hard to wrap up a band nicely and neatly, as you are very much aware.
It seems to be like everything I'm involved with. I don't know if I'm cursed or something, but everything kind of fizzles like without a solid dot point at the end of it or whatever, and then kind of comes back or whatever.
Yeah, because like I guess Prom Queen broke up that first time officially, and then came back, but it never like actually broke up a second time, right? It just you just kind of stopped booking shows.
Yeah, that's happened a few times. Like life changes, location changes, family dynamics change and stuff. People are concentrating on that. People are concentrating on real jobs and things like that. So it's always one of those slow burning things anyway.
How is it for you? How do you feel about Beloved and that era of the band not being a part of this tour and the set?
That's a weird one because I think we released that album in the wrong time of the metalcore type of stuff. It was kind of taking a dip because it was a real saturated market. People started discovering, lower pitches and going more that route with the like I don't want to say the dirty degent word, but that was kind of the in fashion thing.
Yeah.
So I think Beloved flew under the radar, where I'd put up a good half of that record with the rest of our catalog. We're all much better players than being teenagers, like the record before. And so yeah, that stuff not being included in this set, being that this set is a first 10 years of the group. It's there's a few that I miss, and like the last time we were touring on the Beloved material, I was kind of like pretty confident in how tight we were and all that, which is actually translated super well now, playing the old songs now with that standard of where we left off. And obviously Jamie jumping from lead vocal to bass and backing for this in honor of Sean.
Yeah.
It's, like really good of him to look at it kind of like a football team changing positions. I'm on the wing this week. Now I'm up playing in the forward line, but his like backing dynamic with Crafter's stuff is actually a really sick combo.
Yeah, hearing some of it then in soundcheck was sick.
Yeah, I'm pretty he's one of my best. He's probably the guy out of the family tree that I talk to like the most over time when we do go on the hiatuses.
Yeah.
Or hiatus.
It's really nice that you've been able to bring him, like someone else from the band, kind of back into the band.
Yeah, absolutely.
To fill SK's shoes, because it obviously must be really fucking hard at the same time to do this without him.
Yeah, it's super weird, particularly like everyone, I think anyone involved with music puts a time and a place to whatever that soundtrack is, and obviously there wasn't a lot of age difference between me and SK being the young guys of the group. So going into this catalog, you were asking earlier what I was most reluctant at, and I was kind of like avoiding being like, I don't know how I'm gonna feel. I'm around these people that were from that timeline and without Sean, and it's kind of like the majority of the time with him in those years was with this kind of soundtrack. So I was a bit personally nervous if that would stir up a bit of sadness, and I think I'm in a good place with it. Like, it's never going to go away. It's never going to heal. It's just more accepting and a bit more celebratory, where I think a lot of people had the celebratory outlook a lot earlier than I did, where it was just like quite a painful situation.
Yeah.
That I've got some justification in my own mind these days.
Yeah, Sean's death rocked me and so many people in our close circles so hard, and it was fucked. But his funeral was actually, I think, the best night I had in, what was that, 21 or 22? I can't remember anymore, like all those years. Kind of blur a bit, the lockdown years, but yeah,
in terms of like the wider community coming together.
Yeah,
and
just being able to like celebrate his life with everybody and have a whole bunch of fun.
Yep.
It was fucking sick. And yeah, I guess now the rest of the country and everyone else that was a fan and not necessarily like a close friend gets to celebrate his life by seeing his legacy celebrated with these shows. So.
Absolutely. Hearing that Shocks in Mouth main riff that came from him.
Oh wow.
Being one of the biggest songs is pretty cool. Like, this is, he didn't write too much music for the group, but arguably the biggest or second biggest song is sort of based around something he brought to the band. So that's the one that hits me the most. I'm like, we're doing the SK riff now, sweet.
All right, well, obviously Amur is checking their drums now, so I think we probably have to wrap it up again, but I'm glad we got to end it on that note.
Yeah, it's all good, man.
Thanks, Kev. Thanks for listening to Music Is My Life. This podcast is self-produced by me, Lachlan Watt. I'd like to thank Audio Technica Australia for providing the high-quality equipment that has made this possible, as well as Patrick Galvin at Hollowbone Studio for the design. The killer theme music that you are currently hearing was written by the legends TJ Cowgill and Sam Saljuki. Catch you in the next episode.